Right. So, some considerations that we had while we were deciding how to, restructure a risk framework, and how to translate it into a graph, that we would, input the data into Jira and then have as a graph is, one thing is, on deciding the level of risk, we used to use the risk matrix, quite, religiously. And then we were thinking about also one of the things was risk taxonomy. How are we going to, are we abusing the taxonomy at that point when we were, trying to design our graphs? And then we're thinking also about telling the story. So in regards to the risk matrix, actually, it turned out that for the audience that we were supposed to talk to, it wasn't working. And it wasn't working purely because we wanted, for example, if we wanted to present the top 10 engineering risks from a risk matrix point of view, we would get certain risk levels, which you'll see later on the dashboards, for example, high. But if you're going to present top 10 engineering risks, you can't have them all high, all the same color. You can even lose credibility while doing that, even though by just, religiously going into the risk matrix, they might all turn out to be high, actually high. But if you present it to an audience like that, you might lose credibility. You might lose an opportunity to establish a good communication channel, because they'll be like, what are these on about? Like, is everything a risk to them? Is everything a high risk to them? So we decided to kind of be more loose on the risk levels. We decided we're not gonna make it as a viewpoint from like an objective risk qualification point of view, but we decided to just see it from like our point of view, and in a way to say, like, for example, if we're presenting the top 10 engineering risks, we're going to present the highest one in red, and we're going to present I'm going to present the lowest one in green, even though realistically maybe that green one isn't really green and low. In regards to the risk taxonomy, I'll talk about it a bit later, but presenting a risk in a purely kind of academic point of view, vulnerability plus threat equals risk, might not speak to the audience again, because if we're talking to some execs who don't have the technical background, we again might lose their attention, we might lose their focus, we might lose credibility. And that's where we come to the third point, is telling a story, right? So we want to tell a story, we want to put the dots together for them, and we want to show why something matters. Right, next slide. So this is a little small representation of how, for example, we can tell a story with a graph. So I'm going to explain the risk cats a bit later, but basically the concept is we have risk aggregators, which we named, registers and categories, and then they pour into, more granular risk categories, or even at the point of risk cats, they become actual risks. We had to remove some of them, so because of confidentiality, and this has all been anonymized anyway. But the point here is the graph will actually show really well how a couple of risks that are smaller and more granular can actually create a much bigger risk, and can show why another risk actually matters even more. So next slide, please. And this is the initial.
Just on that one, it's probably worth mentioning that every one of those yellow boxes is a Jira ticket, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Dennis, for reminding that. Yeah, so every one of these boxes is a Jira issue ticket, and the links that you see between them are actually these are the Jira links. So that's how we decided to go for it, and we link these issues in a way that we knew that a graph is going to be readable and digestible. So this is a risk matrix that we were initially deploying and using, but as I said, we decided to deviate a bit from it. When we're looking into the Glasgow risk register, the main one, the corporate one, we're still quite using it quite religiously, but when we went down to our technical, more technical risks, more kind of engineering kind of risks, we decided to start just using, you know, more like a risk ranking based on what's important for glass wool rather than, you know, like a general risk matrix point of view.